Hi, I'm Ernie.
And I'm Ben.
And this is Budget Nerds.
What was all in your mind?
You are not alone.
No, you are not. Welcome back to the show, friends. Welcome back to the studio, Ben. It's been forever since we've recorded an episode.
We're recording this at the beginning of December, and there was Thanksgiving, and I think we were a little ahead too. So we did our live Budget Nerds last week, but yeah, besides them, we haven't done our old recording in quite a little while. So it's kind of nice to see you.
Yeah, and great to be back. And we've got a great topic today. It's a spicy one. Maybe a little controversial, and it's nothing that I think this community hasn't heard before. So here it is, savings. Specifically, it doesn't exist. There's no such thing as savings.
Yeah, I wrote a blog about this. At first, I did an Instagram live where I don't know where the idea came from. I think it's just the hive mind of YNAB and stuff we've been saying for a long time, but I packaged it a little differently in this Instagram live and said, hey, what if saving money is an illusion? There's no such thing as saving money. So I wrote a little blog on that topic, and Ernie liked it, so so he wanted to talk about it today.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Well, let's get into that. What do you mean when you say there's no such thing as savings?
Okay, so I don't actually mean there's no such thing as savings. I'll be perfectly honest. Like, that's the clip, right? That's to draw you in. But I also do mean that there's no such thing as saving money. So this blog I wrote, the title is "There's no such thing as saving money," and then the subtitle is "And why that means you can save with joy." So I'm still acknowledging that saving money is a thing, but I just want to reframe it so that it goes from being kind of a chore to something that's actually joyful and fun. Right.
I think that is a really good idea to reframe it because, man, there's a lot of baggage with that idea of savings. Like it's something I have to do, or like you said in the blog, and it made me laugh out loud, something your grandma wants
right.
you to do.
Yeah.
Right. So there's this heavy expectation that with every paycheck, you need to be saving some of that money.
You ask somebody why you should save, and I feel like they'll say oh, because I think it amounts to you save money because you're supposed to, right? And then that might be true, but it's not very motivating. It's actually kind of just, I don't know. I just feel like it's like Charlie Brown. I just watched Charlie Brown Christmas, so I'm thinking about this right now with the rah, 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 rah. It's like somebody's telling you have to do this, and there's not really a reason why. And I think a lot of that stems from what people think of as saving money. So if I were to Billy Eichner style grab somebody off the street. If you know, right? And be like, what does it mean to save money? Like real aggressively like that, and
stuff the microphone in your face.
If you guys have seen Billy on the street, you know what I'm talking about. This is it on YouTube? I don't know. I watched it on YouTube.
Yeah, it is.
Anyways, Billy Eichner grabs people and screams at them, usually with a celebrity next to them. It's very funny. And yeah, if you were to do that and say, what does it mean to save money? Most people would probably say putting money in a savings account. Right. And that is just the most bummer definition of saving money. But that's what most people would say. Right.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's because that's the way I thought of it.
Yeah. I mean, that's just what you do. And I think there's a lot of marketing here. I think, I think banks want us to think in terms of accounts a lot because they make money when you open accounts, right? There's they got quotas, so it's all about what, where you keep your money. And YNAB doesn't really care about the location of your money. It's all about the purpose. Rule 1, give every dollar a job, right? That's what we do every single time we get paid. It just becomes a normal habit of our lives. Every single time we get paid, we set that money aside into different categories. And some of those categories we might think of in our head as savings categories. And that's more what it means to save money when you're in the YNAB paradigm, I think, is setting money aside in a savings category, right?
Well, and just to kind of go back to this traditional idea of savings, it was so entrenched in me that when I came to YNAB, the idea that the account didn't matter just it blew my mind. Actually, at first, it didn't even make any
I struggled
sense.
with it for a long time.
It was confusing. And I struggled with it too. And I just, as we talk about numerous, on pretty much every episode, it comes up to the matchy game, right?
Exactly.
Like, I have money in this savings account. And so now I have to, match it up somewhere in YNAB.
And most people, when they come into YNAB, they create a category they just call savings or something like that because that's their paradigm. It's like, this is my savings. It's not real clear what it's for. And so they do the matchy. They create a category called savings. They park their savings account money in there. And sometimes it takes people a long time to really break free of that. It took me years before I kind of stopped the matchy thing. When I came into YNAB, I had multiple savings accounts for different purposes. So I just matched it that way. I was a little bit closer than just the general savings thing because I was kind of YNABing already with accounts. We call it YNABing with accounts. It's like a thing people do. If you meet somebody that's like, oh yeah, I have 30 savings accounts, please tell them about YNAB because they're gonna love it. It's because you have savings, like each of those categories is a savings account. It's really what it is. It's just you don't have to deal with banks and transferring money. It's just simpler,
All right, so we're not going to get into that matchy thing. Like, that's not the purpose
we could talk
of breaking that or anything like that.
Other episode on that, I think. So,
yeah, we're tackling this idea of savings and what that actually means. And so we're breaking free from savings is an account, right? You take a portion of your paycheck and you just dump it in there without any thought of what that money actually might need to do for you in the future.
And I think a lot of people, because they have this definition of if I put money in a savings account, I'm saving money, they can get into this kind of this loop-de-loop of just no progress. Like they're spinning their wheels. That's what I'm going for here, right? So like you put money in a savings account because you feel when you get paid, you're like, oh, I'm supposed to save. So you put some of that money in a savings account. You might even automate that. And then we hear from folks all the time where they're like, they get through almost to their next paycheck and they're like, I don't have any money. They take the money out of savings and it's just this rotating thing. But they still feel like they're saving money because they put money in a savings account, but they're never actually getting ahead. They're never actually saving up any amount of money for anything in particular. It's just kind of this rotating savings, spinning their wheels kind of a thing,
Yeah, and it feels fantastic on payday when you do make that transfer to savings. You're like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I remember that feeling. But then 2 days later, a week later, it's even worse when you have to pull it out. You feel like a complete failure. And I was in that spinning of the wheels cycle pre-YNAB. And I think the big issue there was I wasn't considering everything.
Right.
So once I started thinking through true expenses, and, in that habit of just I'm going to embrace them every single month, that's when I was able to actually start setting money aside because I was putting it towards, things that would come up over the course of the year. So there weren't nearly as many surprises as there were pre-YNAB for me.
And I think the other reason why it's so easy to just get in that cycle is if saving money means putting money in a savings account, that definition has nothing to do with the purpose of the saving. And it can start to feel like the savings don't really matter because it's not very motivating to just watch numbers go up. I mean, for some people, I think it is. I mean, that's why video games exist, right?
Sure.
But like, it's just not very motivating because you don't have any reason to set the money there besides, oh, I think I'm supposed to, right? And so it's just as easy to take it out.
This blog says I should put 20% aside from every single paycheck and that I should automate this and not even think about it.
Yeah, but like, it's not enough, man. Like, I don't want to live my life that way. It's just, it's so boring. I mean, there's nothing exciting about it. Now, if you're setting money aside
Yeah.
for Hawaii vacation or for a wedding or for even for an emergency fund, like even saying that, for peace of mind, it's better than just, oh, I'm putting money in a savings account, for anything, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm just imagining going to a party, which I don't do, talking to people, which I don't do real often, and like telling them I save X% of my paychecks. I mean, how boring is that? But if we started a conversation about, hey, what are you saving for? Yeah, okay. So tell me more about that lawn tool or that house rental project.
Yeah.
That makes you kind of tilt your head a little bit and say,
But
I'm
the thing
interested.
is, though, Ernie, I mean, I think even if you do ask somebody at the party, like they might not have an answer, or they might have either they don't have an answer. It's like, I'm just saving just to save, or their answer is a million different things. Like they're not going to be like, oh, I'm saving for that lawn care project. They're going to say, oh, I'm saving for this and this and this and this and this. And it's like they do that thing where you have money in a savings account and you spend it like a dozen times over and over again in your head.
Sure. Oh,
You
that's
know
a
what
good
I mean?
point.
And I think that's also a problem. Like this could even cause people to not save enough because they're not following rule 2. They're not setting money aside for specific financial emergencies that can come up. And so people might say like, oh, I have $1,000 in a savings account. I feel like that's enough because that could cover a car repair, or that could cover a heating bill, or that could cover a broken heater, or that could cover a vet visit, right? But it can't cover all those things. It can only cover like one of those things, right? And so I think it can cause people not to save enough, but also not save with any joy. It's just kind of boring and lame,
All right, so we need a different mindset
Yes.
when it comes to savings. And you outlined this in the blog. I've been hearing this phrase from Teacher Lee for years. And I don't even know, maybe he invented, I don't know. But this idea that every dollar is a savings dollar, every dollar is a spending dollar.
Yeah. This comes from, so this is the way I defined it in the blog, and I think it helps to kind of frame the rest. So we need a definition of savings that doesn't have anything to do with an account. Okay. So that's what I was going for here. And I think we talked about this in our blogs. This is not just me. This is a YNAB thing. Saving money means deferring the use of your money for a later time and for a specific purpose. Okay. So saving money doesn't mean putting it in a particular place. It just means not using your money right now, deferring the use of your money. That's the first thing. And I think that's kind of obvious. I mean, that like by not spending, you are saving, right? But then we add on for a specific purpose. So the location doesn't matter at all. Only the purpose matters. And also the amount of time that you're not spending the money, right?
So you can save money for that Hawaii vacation a year from now. You can save money for groceries that you buy in 2 days.
So this is where every dollar is a savings dollar kind of comes in, right?
And where that money is living, again, doesn't matter. Checking account, savings account. It could be underneath your mattress.
I mean, this is why I wrote another blog, kind of it's basically this exact blog, but different framing, called "Do You Even Need a Savings Account?" Like, does that even matter? And this was years ago now, when I was considering just going down to a checking account, and I actually did. I had one checking account with a pretty good rate of return. So it was like an interesting. It was SoFi actually, and they were offering just a checking. They didn't even offer a savings account. They offered just a checking account with a good rate of return on the checking account at the time. And so I jumped in there and I got rid of my savings account completely because what I realized is I don't even need a savings account, right? Now, well, SoFi stopped doing the nice return on the checking account, but they also have a savings account. So I later switched to savings, and it actually matters.
Right, because quotas.
Right, because quotas. And actually, it matters now. Back then, it didn't matter because the interest rates were so low. Like a savings account, it didn't give you anything. But now it actually does. So, so for that reason, I have a savings account. But I don't need it to separate my money. The only reason why I use a savings account is to get a little bit of a return, you know?
Yeah. This mindset shift is so helpful for folks. For those folks, especially who are like, I can't save money. If you put money aside, for your grocery shopping in 2 days, that is saving money. If you're putting money aside for that water bill coming up at the end of the month, that is saving money.
I love it.
I mean, it's encouraging, it's hopeful, it's aspirational.
Yeah. So when we say every dollar is a savings dollar, what we're saying is if you're not spending it right this second, if you're not actively forking over cash, and if you set it aside for a particular purpose, you're saving it. And the only difference is the amount of time. Like Ernie said, if you're saving it if you put it aside on Monday for groceries and you set it and you spend the money on Wednesday, you've saved it for 3 days. Okay. So you still saved it, but you only saved it for 3 days. But the same goes for like a vacation that you're saving for to go on next summer. You're saving that for a year, or maybe you're saving up for your kids' college tuition. You're saving that for 18 years, maybe, right? It's just a matter of time, but every bit of money that you set aside, you are saving. It's just a question how long you're saving it.
We could make the argument that YNABers save 100% of their income.
If by that definition,
right?
Yeah, this happens a lot. Like the fire community, especially, it's like obsessed with what's your savings rate? What's your savings rate? And like, I get it. Like that they mean specifically like what are you putting in investments for, your early retirement, right? But but people ask me that, or I've asked myself that, and I'm like, like the limit does not exist, like does not compute. I can't do the math because the way I think about savings is just it doesn't even I'm not even in that paradigm,
Yeah, that question has always driven me nuts. And my priority isn't to retire early. If it was, I would be all about contributing X% to retirement accounts, investment accounts, stuff like that. But I'm not. So I'm just like, I mean, I've tried to calculate savings rates before. I'm just
do
why?
I include it's almost expenses that I'm planning on spending in a year, or like, I guess not, because and that kind of gets into what we're saying here is, okay, if every dollar is a savings dollar, then every dollar is a spending dollar too, right?
Absolutely.
Money. Okay, here's the hot take, Ernie. Money is meant to be spent. It's called currency, which means it's moving, right? It's a current. It's literally the purpose of money is to be spent. If you're not spending your money or planning to spend your money, you're doing it wrong. I'm going to go ahead and say that out there right now. Ooh. Okay. I mean, unless you're like Scrooge McDuck and you just enjoy diving into a pile of coins and breaking your neck because it's not a cartoon, it's real life, and that's what would happen. There's no reason to hoard money. Money is meant to be spent. Okay, so go ahead and clip that out of the video and use that for permission. Ben says that you should spend all your money. But I really do believe that money is meant to be spent. And the fact is that sooner or later, you are going to spend all of your money. You will spend it. Every dollar is a spending dollar. All right. So that's the hot take. Ernie, why don't you actually make that practical? Make that make sense.
Well, we'll start with the morbid first. And you pointed this out in the blog. I mean, when you die, you can't take the money with you. So it's getting passed on. It's getting spent in some way, shape, or form.
To have some money aside, like still have some money in investments or whatever after you die, you're still going to spend it. In fact, you literally write a document on how you want to spend that money. It's called a will. It's called the last will and testament. And the whole point of a last will and testament is how do you want to spend your money? That's what it is. And we're spending it by giving it to our heirs or giving it to an organization who are going to spend it, right? So even ultimately at the end, you're still going to spend your money. You can't take it with you, right?
I'm thinking this might be making folks break out in a cold sweat. Like those people who they
just
love
entered
saving,
the matrix, or they exited
right?
the matrix. Like, right.
Yeah, I mean, to think that like, how do I want to spend all of my money? That might take a real leap, right? Like, you have to overcome some of that traditional thinking, we talked about with savings, but it's also really fun.
Yes.
Like, it's fun to think about how I'm going to spend my money. How am I going to spend it this weekend? How am I also going to be spending it a year from now, 50 years from now?
Yeah. And you say 50 years from now, that's another example, because a lot of people would probably, their objection would be like, well, you say that every dollar is a spending dollar, but what about retirement, right? You're saving that money. And that's like probably the most savingest saving that you can do. Right? Because if let's say you're 25 years old, you want to retire when you're 65, you're saving that money for 40 years. Okay. So that's a really long time. But why are you saving that money? You're saving it so you can, say it with me, you can spend it. Right?
Spend it
when you don't want to work as much because you're older, or maybe even not. Maybe if you want to retire early, you just don't want to work as much as you do right now. You're saving for retirement, so that in retirement you can spend it, right? And not work as much. Yeah. So, yeah, there's no way around it. Every dollar is a spending dollar, but every dollar is a savings dollar too. It's just a question of how long until you actually end up spending it.
Yep. And I get it. I mean, the fear is that, well, I haven't been good with money in the past.
Right.
And so when I get a lot of it, I'm going to spend it all. I don't want to do that. I want to start saving. But again, I think it's more helpful if we reframe it and just you're spending that money later on. So it opens up dreams. Like what do I want my life to look like? Spending the money now, spending the money a year from now, 50 years from now.
I mean, even in retirement, instead of being like this drudgery of, oh, I got to save money because of the way society works and I gotta be able to, take care of myself when I'm old. Think of it as, how do I want to spend my money? And what do I want that to look like? And then it can actually be enjoyable. It doesn't have to be such a boring thing that I have to set aside a big chunk of my income every month. Instead, you say, I'm setting aside a big chunk of my income so I can spend on what I want in the future. Right.
I love that part of looking at it as joyful. Like, how can I joyfully spend my money in the future?
So there's no such thing as saving money because every dollar is a spending dollar. It naturally follows. And and the fact is, this paradigm, it kind of, the whole idea of saving just kind of breaks down. Like, it all kind of falls apart. Like, if every dollar is a savings dollar, every dollar is a spending dollar too. So if everything is savings, then nothing is savings, right? And this is where the title of the video comes up. There's no such thing as saving money, because there really isn't. If you have this mindset of, it's not about a savings account, it's about not spending it right now and setting it aside for a very specific purpose. And that purpose is always ultimately to spend, right? And then you could start thinking, is this especially good way of thinking? Okay, here's what I think might be going on to people listening to this right now. There's probably half of the people that are savers, and they're like having an existential crisis right now. Right? You're like, but this is core to who I am, and you're telling me it doesn't exist. Right? And then there's another half that's listening to this right now, who are more naturally spenders, and that's me. And this is giving you life, because you can realize, if I want to save money, I'm actually not saving money. I'm getting ready to spend it. So I think of it that way. When I'm setting money aside for savings purposes, just think of it as I'm getting ready to spend it. And I think it makes it a little more fun, a little more enjoyable.
It makes it so much more fun. I mean, I've experienced this so many times, and I've heard so many other stories from YNABers where when they set money aside for something future, whether it's, a couple days or a couple months, years, whatever the case may be, when they finally spend that money, they experience joy, even if that thing is really, really boring. I remember going to Menards, big box home improvement store here in the Midwest. Actually, I think they're all over.
I still have never seen a Menards with my own eyes, so I don't know if this exists, but we have talked about the rebates.
But I remember, and I know I've shared this story before, but I bought this 12-pack of furnace filters, like for a whole year.
I don't even know what a furnace filter is. But, well, I know what a filter is. Like I think of like an air conditioner filter. Like an air filter, right?
Oh, okay, right. I'm just thinking. I'm like, whoa. Have you ever changed your filter in your?
Yes, but this is funny. This is really okay. Can we just take an aside here, Ernie? I live in Central Virginia. It's hot here. Ernie lives in Wisconsin, where it's wicked cold, right? So you think of it as a furnace filter, and I think of it as an air conditioning filter, right? But it's probably the same exact thing. It's like a little cardboard frame with like
yes, yeah. And here's my method. Don't at me with your advice here. I buy the cheapest ones and I replace them every single month.
Okay.
I think traditionally they say like
3 months,
replace them every 3 months, and so people buy really expensive ones. No, I've talked to some HVAC guys, and they're like, just buy the cheap ones and then replace them every single month. I'm like, I might buy really the cheap
ones and replace it every 3 months. I'm not sure. Because like I don't know what's the cheap ones and what's the expensive ones. I used to have, when I first moved in, we had oil heat here, which is unusual in Virginia. Most people don't have oil heat, and it was an older furnace, and it was like a screen that you had to take out and like spray with a hose. Do you remember anything like that? Yeah.
I've dealt with those before.
It's annoying. Like it's the worst. And then an HVAC person came and worked on it, and he was like, just take this screen out and put one of the cardboard ones in there. And I was like, oh, didn't know you could do that. And so I do that now. But I guess it is better probably all around for a lot of reasons to have the spray one, because you're not putting out so much stuff in landfill. But I don't think it was very effective either. I think it was pretty old and messed up. So
okay. Well, I'm just glad to know that you're aware that filters exist and you are replacing.
Okay. Heater filter, furnace filter, because I think of it as air conditioning because I live in a hot place and you live in a cold place. That's so funny.
Yeah,
man, I love
that
those
is.
differences. Anyways, sorry.
Well, okay. Well, back to that story. I bought the furnace filters, 12 of them at once, and I mean, we're talking a small amount of money. It was like $40, right? Probably not even that, but it was in my home maintenance category, something that I put money aside every single month. And it felt really good. Like I had saved money for these stupid furnace filters.
Yeah. I mean, I feel that way too because I buy them in bulk, like buy them from Amazon. I think I get like 6 at a time. So I'm good for like a year and a half. Right. And I think, oh, this feels so good because it's the same for the exact same reason. I'm like saving up with the thing instead of saving up with the money, right? But I feel like, oh, I don't have to worry about this for a long time. It's kind of nice.
Or for the YNABer who's a month ahead or a partial month ahead, right? When the month flips over from current to next, and you see those categories that already have money in them. I mean, seriously, the best feeling, and it never gets old. It was amazing when I first got that month ahead, but every month since then, it's just like, holy cow.
That's probably the real reason why. Remember I told that story, Ernie, about how I was trying the next month category thing, and the problem is that I did the next month category, but I didn't actually create a habit of filling it in on the first of the month. And so I went on a trip, and it was like the second of the month. I might have been the first. Anyways, went on a trip, and I was like, I don't have any money. So I had to pull over on the side of the road and fill in my categories with on my phone. And my wife was like, is this really necessary? And I was like, yeah, it is, because I just can't handle it, right? That's probably why, because I was missing that feeling, right? That feeling of security.
Absolutely. And so tell us in the comments, like, what are some things that you have weirdly had fun buying because you had the money set aside to spend?
I love that question. And yeah, let us know what you think of this idea that there's no such thing as saving money. Does it give you joy to think that way and be like, okay, anytime I set money aside, I'm getting ready to spend it. So quote unquote savings could be more fun. Or is it making you angry and upset? I want to hear about that too. And if you want to read the blog, it's all laid out there. Check the description or just search up YNAB, no such thing as savings money. It'll come up.
Yeah. And really, at the end of the day, it just doesn't matter. It's just a stupid debate that we have on this nerdy podcast, right? Because that's the kind of things we talk about. But I think it could be really, really helpful if we just start thinking more in terms of how do I want to spend this money, right? What kind of life do I want to create with
that's
this?
the ultimate question we're asking here at YNAB. What do you want to spend your money on? What kind of a life do you want to build with your effort, with your time, with your money? That's what it's all about.
Cool. Well, it feels like forever since we've done a couple YNAB wins. So let's do some of those.
Yeah.
It was all in your mind.
All right, so we have a pretty big backlog of emails and comments that people have sent in, and we only talked for half an hour today, so we're going to do 4 wins, 2 each. So I'll start with Amy, who wrote in on an email, said, "Dear Ben and Ernie, I'm a big fan of the show and a huge fan of YNAB. Thank you, Amy. I am currently on maternity leave with my second child. Congrats. I've been able to use YNAB to work out how much money I needed each month to cover my immediate obligations and true expenses, and to start saving during pregnancy into a holding category to use as an quote-unquote income when my salary went down to half and then to nothing whilst on leave. I was able to take a year off to be with my first child. Awesome. And will be able to do the same this time around. YNAB helped me get really dialed in to my finances, so I am in control of my money rather than my money dictating my choices. Thank you, YNAB. With very best wishes, Amy." Love this, Amy. This is the best. This is why I got into YNAB, because we were having a baby and we needed to save for the medical bills and also for maternity leave. So glad you're able to have that time with your first and with your second kid here. So, man, that's awesome. I love it.
Amy probably has 2 more kids by now. That win was sent in so long ago. My win comes from Dylan. "Hello, budget nerds. I love watching your show." Thanks, Dylan. "I've been a YNABber since 2015 with the desktop app, and I'll never go back to life before budgeting. I've had many wins over the years, but my latest YNAB win has come from the Together feature. So this is YNAB Together, where you can share YNAB with your partner. My partner is a wonderful person, but he's never really known how much money he has, spending based on educated guesses from the balance of his checking account and using credit cards that make it hard to figure out how much he actually owes. Recently, he found an amazing deal for small vacation/weekend house that we're going to split with friends and family. I told him I would only agree to the new expense if he opened a YNAB account."
Love it.
Love that. And he did it. He's finally admitted that he didn't really know how much he had, and he's been asking me things like how to create new categories and goals so he can save for emergencies and other true expenses. I'm such a happy budget nerd.
It's all about finding the right motivation, right?
Totally. And I love how this one worked the other way around, because usually what we tell folks who have, maybe a reluctant partner or an overwhelmed partner, find something that they've always wanted and then use YNAB to make that happen. But it was kind of in reverse, where it's like, hey, we want this thing, but you have to sign up for YNAB before we do it.
I love it. Yeah. And I've recently found this because I have my 7-year-old son who I'm giving an allowance every week, just so he can practice with money. But like he always spends it on plastic toys at the dollar store that my mom brings them to, and I'm just like, but now he's really saving like crazy, because I told him that he could get a Switch Lite, like that $200 one, if he could save $100, which is a lot for a 7-year-old. I would pay for the other $100. So he's doing it. He's like really saving. It's great. So, well, I guess he's not
How much
really saving.
is he getting a
He's
week
getting ready to
or
spend.
a month? He's getting ready to spend. There we go. How
We
much is he
do
getting a month?
$5 a week each, which I feel like is way too much. My son and my oldest daughter both get that. I don't know, man. It feels like way too much, but I also want them to have a good amount. I give it to them in singles and ones as well, so they can like divvy it out in like a little envelope.
Feels more.
Like more. Yeah. I mean, the real point is to get them practicing with money. So I think that's a win. But every time I fork it over, I'm like, this is too much money. But whatever. I can't go back now. Like once you can't like lower it. I guess I could, but I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, all right. Next win is Tamara's, who wrote in on email as well. Tamara said, my husband is retired. My husband is already retired, and I am retiring in about a month. A few months ago, we were talking to our financial advisor about how much money to pull from our retirement income streams when I stop earning a paycheck. He asked us how much we need a month. Sheepish and puzzled looks ensued because we are dinks, double income, no kids, and haven't worried about budgeting once we max our retirement savings monthly. Then he asked how much we spend a month, and we said, however much we have. That's when I decided to look up the 21st century equivalent of envelope budgeting and found YNAB. We have been using it for nearly 2 months, and I am hooked on daily reconciling. Yes, wish farming, budget nerds, Hannah, and the whole lot. Now I can tell our financial advisor exactly how much we need each month, including all the hobbies and house improvements we want to make. I feel so relieved and confident about retiring early without Social Security as part of the picture because we're in control. I've recommended YNAB to several coworkers. Love that. It's just like knowing where you stand, right?
Yeah, and that clarity, it is empowering.
Yes. I mean,
love that,
financial
Tamara.
advisors, tax people, they love YNABers because they actually have answers to these questions they ask. Right?
Yep. Oh, I would love to tell you about exactly how
tell
much
you to
we
the
spend
penny.
every month.
Love it.
All right, my second win, the fourth and final win, comes from Kylie. My husband and I have been married for 3.5 years, and we've always handled our money separately. It worked for us in the past, but right after Christmas, he took a job with a 25% pay cut so he could go back to school for his master's. We realized there was no better time to combine our money. We have been so surprised to discover over the past few months of budgeting together that we have never been better off financially despite the pay cut. We are crushing debt, saving for true expenses, and still not feeling deprived because we're making decisions together. Between YNAB Together and Hannah teaching us to make YNAB widgets on our phone in a recent video, the budget is just so simple to use. My husband actually likes it. I am one happy budget nerd.
So many
Love
happy
that,
partner
Kylie.
talks today. I love it.
Yeah, and what I love there, again, is this idea of, going back to the whole crux, big idea of this episode, what is that life that you want? And then lining that money up with it. Hey, I want to go back to school, even if that means this big pay cut, but we can do that, right? Because we have the clarity, we're knowing how we're spending our money, and you can make those big decisions that really
and
matter.
do it joyfully too,
Love it.
because you actually want what you're going after instead of just, oh, I'm saving money I'm doing something because I feel like I'm supposed to. It's not arbitrary. It's actually real, right?
Yeah, and I got no sense from Kylie that there was a dip in joy,
No, if anything,
happiness,
it's up, right?
contentment. It probably
Exactly.
went up,
Doesn't
right?
even feel like
Absolutely.
they got a pay cut. That's awesome. All right. Well, if you have a YNAB win, you can send it in an email at budgetnerds@ynab.com. Or if you wanted to just send it here in a comment on YouTube, we'd love to read that as well.
All right, folks. Thanks again. We will see you in 2024.
Yes. See you soon.
Happy
Bye.
YNABing.